As a community, there are many ways in which we can be good allies for our LGBTQ friends and community members. Firstly, we should aim to stop using LGBTQ words in rude or offensive ways. There's a fine line between an acceptable joke and an offensive statement that alienates people or makes them uncomfortable. Secondly, call out homophobia and transphobia. Make a stand against it and others will feel more comfortable as well. Thirdly, aim to be more inclusive. Use gender-inclusive terms and use people's correct pronouns to address them. And don't assume people's gender and sexuality. Make everyone feel safe and included. One of the best things that you can do to start being an ally is to educate yourself on the LGBTQ community. There are a lot of things that you can learn about. If you ever find yourself curious about queer history, then just look it up. We even made an entire previous video about it. There's also a bunch of modern content to learn about. Follow some LGBTQ content creators on your social media platforms, especially POC and trans creators. And of course, if an LGBTQ person in your life feels comfortable talking about their experiences, listen. But don't pressure them to talk, as these can be highly personal topics. Always respect people's experiences and stories. Using someone's correct pronouns is important for their comfort and safety. You can't always tell someone's pronouns by looking at them, so make sure to ask for pronouns when you meet someone new and introduce yourself with your pronouns. Also, a good thing to remember is that pronouns don't necessarily equal gender or gender expression. There are a lot of different pronouns and variations, so just trust and listen when people tell you theirs. When you mess up, just learn and move on. Mistakes are totally okay to make as long as you're respectful and learn from them.
Be socially aware and be aware of privilege. Privilege has an often subconscious effect on the way you are perceived, as well as the way you go about your daily life. Be aware of any privilege you have, gender, race, ability, etc., and how it affects you and the people around you. Use this privilege to support those with less or without privilege. Another way you can support the queer community is by donating to LGBTQ plus supporting organizations. Some examples are the Trevor Project, which provides suicide helplines for queer youth as well as educational content, the Astra Lesbian Foundation for Justice, which gives grants for queer women, POC, and trans people's LGBTQ advancement projects internationally, PFLAG organizations that advocate for queer rights, and many, many more. We will post a full list of great organizations in the announcements. During Pride Week this year, our school fundraised for Rainbow Railroad, which helps LGBTQ people escape persecution. At the time of recording, we have already raised over $1,000 for this organization. Another important way to be an ally is to be politically active. While we see this more in the U.S. and internationally, queer rights are threatened by homophobic and transphobic laws, bills, and policymakers. We can't stand up to this alone, so if you see a representative government passing bills you don't like, you can do something about it. As a minor, you can sign petitions, call your representatives, and campaign for candidates who you support and inform people about your cause. When you turn 18, always vote and never stop being involved. Here in Victoria and in Canada, we are very privileged to live in a generally open and accepting place. However, it still isn't perfect. Casual homophobia and transphobia attitudes are still present, people still often are afraid to come out, and structural issues like LGBTQ youth being overrepresented in the homeless population are all issues that must be dealt with. However, many countries are backsliding, and internationally, LGBTQ people are often persecuted against, scapegoated, or having their rights taken away. If there's one thing to take away from this presentation, is that the progress and fight towards LGBTQ equality is never over, and that everyone should strive to be an ally, educate themselves, and support the LGBTQ folks in their lives.
And to the LGBTQ people in the audience, we see you and we love you. Regardless of if you're out, not out, figure it out years in the future, or whatever. You're valid and you're wonderful. So thank you for watching, and Pride Week at GNS continues until Friday. So come to the events to learn and have fun.